Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's time to unbox some guitars, not just brand new stuff. I've actually got some older items in here as well. Let's go ahead and start with one of these. So, if you happen to be new to the channel, and you think all I do is review new guitars all the time, that's actually fairly new. It was 2019 when I started to get heavy into the brand new guitars, but before that, I made my name by documenting the Norlin era of Gibson. And we just saw one of those a couple of days ago in the US1 review. Well, not technically Norlin era, but like right at the end of it. I still kind of count it as part of it. So I decided to pick up a couple more Norlins, as you can tell by our beautiful Gen 3 chainsaw case here. And this thing is really well packed, so let's get it out of here. So the Norlin era for Les Pauls anyways is generally considered from the late 60s until about 1985-ish, and that's when it swapped over to the Henry J era. And this is a kind of an era of guitars that got a lot of hate because they're not 50 specs. They're not necessarily built out of the highest quality materials as you might think of it today. They had multi-pieced bodies, there were a bunch of different things tried. But what's kind of interesting, my channel got popular because it's right around the time that the generation that kind of grew up with these started to get more disposable income, and people were searching for these because they were kind of more affordable. So it's kind of like just a happy accident there. And I just love these Norlin era ones because there's so many limited editions. And that's kind of like when Gibson started to do, you know, limited colors and actually market it as a limited edition, starting with like the 2550. But anyways, let's go ahead and see what is inside this Gen 3 chainsaw case. Oh, nice. So I found this thing on Reverb, and I just kind of fell in love with this because it has the special 80s parts. So we're talking the flip-out winding tuners here. They're just a Schaller branded tuner here, but the tip comes out and helps you string up your guitar faster. You can also loosen them. They're more so cool than functional. I mean, a string winder is going to be faster anyways, but there's a reason why people pay, you know, like $300 to $400 a set for those tuners. It's just because they're cool. And on top of that, we've got a few other fun things. Unfortunately, we do not have the PAF stickers on here, which this one technically should have, but we do have the 3-point adjust-o-matic bridge right here. It's set up pretty basic right now, but you can't have it in like the upper position or the lower. These things get freaky. They were designed so they could be put on left-handed and right-handed guitars, and it does help you get better intonation. Say they place the bridge in the wrong location or something. And this one also has these guys, the diamond-shaped posi-lock strap buttons. Basically just a primitive version of a strap lock. It's a regular strap button, but it's got some points. We saw those on the Adam Jones Les Paul Customs. So this thing actually appears to be in, you know, decently played shape. It was definitely taken care of, but we've got some worming on the back. It could use a slight cleaning up, but this is from 1982, kind of late in the year, so that means we do not have a volute anymore. Late 81 into 82 is when that kind of gets phased out. But the other thing that makes this interesting is it is a factory chrome model. Now, I'm not going to say it's rare, but it is less common to find factory chrome. But once you get to the 80s, they started to use it more and more often. Now, if you have, say, like a 76 through like a 78 in chrome hardware, that's when it becomes a little bit more rare. But this is a pretty nice example. It's clean in the fact that it hasn't overly yellowed out. It's still very mild, and that matches very well with the chrome hardware here. So my big thing about buying these Norlin era customs, I keep getting burnt with like twisted necks and maxed out truss rods. So I always ask the sellers for photos of that now, just to make it easier on everybody. But seeing if the neck is straight or not can sometimes be difficult. It looks like this one just needs like a very small truss rod adjustment, and then that should be good. But it's always good to double check because one of these sellers, they said, sure, I'll take you those photos. And then oh, geez. Yep, this was that seller. I asked him to do that, and he said he was going to, and then they just shipped it out. That is the most maxed out truss rod I've ever seen. That is bad. I mean, it's part of the reason why I kind of stopped buying vintage stuff. It's nobody knows how to describe these properly. I mean, you'd never look at this and think, hey, this has a bad truss rod in it. But unfortunately, somebody hammered away on that and ended up really hurting the guitar. Now, thankfully, StuMac did send me those things, so I could fix this one. So maybe we'll use this as our test subject here. Well, I suppose we should move on to our next guitar after that initial disappointment. Let's see if the second time's the charm. This is another Norlin era Les Paul custom, but this is the one I did get photos on, so there should be no disappointments here. No disappointments. Please, no disappointments. I would hate to give Norlin era guitars a bad name because every single one I unboxed has some sort of fatal issue that was not disclosed. At least everybody's packing their guitars well today. I mean, this isn't the best packing material in the world, but I will take random thrown in paper towels and garbage bags any day over a guitar that flops in the case. This thing kind of has a fruity smell to it, which in my experience of dealing with guitars means they're either trying to cover up a smoke scent or, you know, they just like those Renuzits or whatever you plug into your wall and their house just smells like that in general. This case is actually pretty clean. Unfortunately, we are missing a latch right there, but this is the other basic style Gibson case that was also available during the Norlin era. Let's see what we got in here. Ooh, wine red this time. Now, I'm not a huge fan of wine red, but, ooh, I'm actually really happy that I have this because there's a review and demo coming up that it would be nice to have a wine red Les Paul custom for. Unfortunately, it's not a 90s one, but I think I would rather have a 70s, 80s wine red Les Paul custom anyways. So this thing right here, let's see what year it is. Looks like a 1978. You know, finding late 70s customs is getting harder because my favorite years really comes to that late 70s, like 76 to 79. They're just some good guitars. Now I'm noticing this one, once again, has more wear than was actually disclosed. Like the only thing I'm upset about is there's like gouges in the top right here underneath the tailpiece and whatnot, but as long as our neck is good and our truss rod is not maxed out, I'm not going to complain too much because just like I was telling you earlier, the factory chrome ones from the 70s are actually pretty rare. Like not ultra rare, but it will take you a while to find one of these if you're looking for them. Again, it's easier to find in the 80s. But this one, the neck is so thin. You can tell somebody liked to play in this area right here. There's actually kind of a ridge where the fretboard has shrank. So I'm guessing that's why there's so much wear right here. It's kind of like goes from a gloss to more of a satin finish. So I think for a player, this will actually make somebody very happy. That is a thin neck though, like very thin. But cool, we do have the missing latch in here if you wanted to repair it. But yes, our neck looks good on this one. Truss rod is well adjusted. And the screw was still up from when they checked. Yes, this is what a truss rod should look like. Now, if you got a little bit of thread sticking out, you're okay. It's just in limited adjustability. But if it's all the way out like that last one, that needs repair. You should not be doing that anymore because all you're doing is pulling the truss rod out. It needs hammered back in. You got to put a washer in. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely kind of a costly process. And you got to make sure you take it to somebody that actually knows what they're doing. But the frets don't seem too bad on this one either. They do have some wear though. But there we go, a beautiful 1977 Gibson Les Paul custom. Starting to get harder to find these customs. It used to be I could buy like 5 of these a week. You know, around like what, 25 to 3,000. Now anymore, they're like what, 35 to 5,000, even for kind of more beat up examples. But let's see, is that a one-piece top? Nope, there it is. That is pretty decently matched. You can hardly even see that line right there. I'm sure there's one right here. Okay, yep, there it is. 3 pieces. I was gonna say, if I got a one-piece top Norlin, that's rare. It does happen occasionally, but generally they're like Kalamazoo builds. So yes, I would say overall, I'm happy with this one. A little bit more wear than I was expecting, but yeah. What are you gonna do? I'm not going to bust anybody over that. Now, lastly today, I told you guys, I had to buy a third one because the first one had an out-of-phase pickup. I fixed it, I sold it, that was just my review piece, but I was curious, so I bought that second one. So the story behind that is I sent it back to the dealer to be fixed, and they're looking at it, and at this point in time, I do not have an answer. And, that's kind of strange. This is brand new from a dealer, and I don't get the original Gibson box. I mean, I guess it's not a big deal as long as I have a receipt that it came from the original place. And at the end of the day, how many people actually keep their original boxes for guitars? Like, highly collectible models, I get it. It makes sense. But as a collector, I really don't like owning guitars where it would make sense to keep the original box, because it's like, oh man, I have to store the box. So, inside here sleeps, hopefully, the right guitar. Yes, we've got another Slim Harpo. So this time, remember that second one we got had the Chinese case. This is not the Chinese one. It looks so much better. Like, it's not necessarily the build quality of the China cases. It's just they're so weirdly shaped. If they made them look exactly like this, I honestly wouldn't even care. But let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. Very light, beautiful finish as we've seen before. But I think the big question here is, are the pickups out of phase on this one? So just to catch you guys in on here, out of phase for these pickups means the magnet is upside down in this one. So you just have to take that pickup out, slide the magnet out, and flip it over, and then it's good. It has nothing to do with wiring on this particular example. You can make your middle position out of phase through wiring as well. That's what sometimes Gibson will do with like push pots. But you can also do it just with the magnets of the pickup. But I did get a comment from somebody that works at the Gibson garage that all 5 or 6 of them that went through their shop did not have it that way. So that means the viewers that have told me theirs were not out of phase, they're not lying. But I happened to get 2 that were like that. And then I also had somebody send me an email that said the 2018 run of ES330s did come stock from the factory with out of phase pickups. And then I also had some guy yelling at me that, hey, Slim Harpo had out-of-phase pickups. That's his sound, don't you know? It's like, well, that's why I kindly asked if somebody could let me know. So, I don't know. It's not in the spec sheets. I think they just might be using old pickups, and they didn't realize some of them were, you know, with the reverse magnets. So I think all we can do is plug this one in and at least hope the output jack works. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. Does this one work? Yes. That's 3 of them out of phase, so apparently it just varies. Some were out of phase, some of them weren't. And some guys were asking me, how do you know it's out of phase? It's this. You hear how it's very nasal sounding? That quack behind the tone? You can always really hear it when you do like a little roll. And there are some situations where you might actually like that if you like the Peter Green tone. So yeah, I'm done buying Slim Harpo ES330s. I'm just gonna go ahead and say they're supposed to be out of phase. You know, despite what other people have told me, I've bought 3, and I think, what was it, a limited edition of 100? So that's 3% of the population. Did I just happen to buy 3 duds in a row? I doubt it. I doubt it. But maybe it's like 50-50. I'm just going to drop the subject at this point in time. But this one doesn't quite have that cool figuring that last one did. So I'm hoping the shop sends it back and just doesn't process it as a return. That was just bizarre that an output jack wouldn't work on a brand new guitar. But since we've got some time left today, why don't we take a look at that good Les Paul Custom? Oh man, hour and a half later. It stinks because photos never show the time and work that I put into whenever I sell one of these vintage guitars. Like, you guys saw how I unboxed it, and now look at this finish. It's just like looking in a mirror. It's so ridiculously reflective. And if you want to know the products that I use, it's the Virtuoso. First you use the cleaner. Doesn't really look that good. then you throw the polish on, and yeah, that happens. Like, if I could buy that company, I would. I first came from that recommendations back on my internet forum days when I was learning about guitars, and I have yet to find anything that looks even better. Now, maybe a cutting polish that is slightly more risky if you don't know what you're doing could do just as good or better of a job, but for something that was, just specifically for these finishes, I'm not sponsored to tell you about it, it's just the best polish that I've used, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and take a look at this Les Paul Custom. It was sold to me as all original, so let's go ahead and take a look and see if that's true. Yes, it is. The neck pickup is indeed the original T-top. You can see the ink stamp right there, dating it to March 22nd, 1978. And you've got your patent number right here. Looks like the covers are original on here, have never been removed. Now this darn bridge pickup. Thankfully, the seller was forthcoming. He said one of the screws was stripped. He couldn't get photos of it. That was about 40 minutes of my cleaning job. I'm so thankful I could get that out. Like, it'd be really easy if I had a Dremel kit and you could just go zoop, zoop, right on out like that, but I don't. So I did a whole bunch of different methods. But what ended up working is I took the height screws out so the pickup would drop down, and then I could just twist the pickup, and that was slowly moving that screw. I mean, I actually had 2 different screws that were stripped on this. But anyways, yes, it's the original pickup in here. We could have told from the control cavity that it was original, but it's always good to have verification. This one is January 10th, 1978. What is strange, though, is if these are the original pickups and they've never been taken out, why were the screws stripped? It makes no sense. Unfortunately, when someone was verifying this guitar, that when I got the guitar, the pickup ring was not sitting flush. So maybe it was the other guy, but he accidentally drilled that crooked, so that put another hole into the guitar. Not a big deal. You see it a lot, but it is worth mentioning. And as far as our pickup cavities, here's what we got going on. It reads wine red in the neck pickup cavity, and a number 6 or 9. I'm not sure. You see that in pretty much all of them, but here's your maple top joined onto a solid mahogany body. Now onto our bridge and tailpiece. It's just your regular Nashville style one. This one is heavily pitted, and I would say it's a tad collapsed. Like, it's not so bad that you need to replace it right this second, but you might consider doing it just for the looks. If I had one on me right now, I would do it. But this is the original one, made in Germany, Schaller part. And the tailpiece is all pitted out to match, and it is the original one. And the easiest way to tell that you have a factory chrome, just look at your studs. Most people don't bother to swap those out if they do a conversion. Now, if they do, yeah, then you can't really tell. But normally, if people swap that out, they'll leave the gold studs in here or vice versa. So, in my opinion, this is factory chrome. I mean, the other way you can tell is looking at the pickups and if these solder joints have ever been touched and if the ones in here for the pickups have ever been touched. But thankfully, we're in the clear for that. So we'll just gloss over this beautiful finish. I mean, it's got some player's wear. It's got nicks and dings. But when you clean it up, it really helps you see them and just makes it look in better shape than it is. Thankfully, whatever that stuff was, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was like a deep gouge. I don't really know what it is because I can't even feel it now that I've polished it out, but it did not completely disappear. So that might be something that affected the finish that was like laying on it for a long period of time. But take a look at those sweet knobs. Very aged, looking cool. While we're talking about knobs, we might as well get our readings. 7.57 k ohms in our bridge, which is exactly where it should be, and 7.56 in our neck. Again, where it should be. 3.78 in the middle. Everything is functioning great. The guy told me he was the second owner and just recently had purchased it from the original guy. That ding right here, that's just from the pick guard, stock from the factory. Yep, it happened back then too. But moving on from our maple top and mahogany body, we've got a maple neck. That's right, a maple neck. This is from the maple neck era of Gibson with an ebony fretboard. Now these frets definitely needed some work. I put some time into this, so these frets are looking shiny and new. I hope you can see all the fret wear. There is some flattening. Depending on your playing style, you might want to get those leveled and recrowned or a refret if you really don't like the low wide frets. But you can see some fingernail divoting wear right here. Not too bad, but it is there. It gives it a nice aged look to it. And the action was a little bit too low in my opinion. Like there was a little bit of buzzing towards the higher fret registers. But I'll leave that up to you to personally set it up if you're interested in being the next owner of this one. Because, you know, some guys, they like it super low. They don't mind a little bit of buzz just because it's easier to play. And then some people just prefer higher action. It's hard to say. But our nut is the original one. And the fret nibs tell us these are the original frets. We've got a 1.65 inch nut width. That increases to 2.04 by the 12th with a 0.8 first fret neck depth. That is ridiculously thin. Now it's a little bit deceiving when you take it at the 12th for these guys because that's where the heel starts, but that's 0.98. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. That's where that heel begins. So taking it like right here is a better measurement at that 9th fret. It stays thin, 0.8889-ish. Here's a good look at that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. You can see just how shallow of a C neck shape that is. They're very thin-necked guitars. As far as thin necks on Gibsons go, these are the thinnest. Now we'll take a look at our headstock. Beautifully golden lacquer, not too many chipped areas, so it just looks nice and vintage. Your truss rod cover even has some age. It reads Les Paul Custom. All back reassembled. I was able to set it up without any of that buzzing. I don't know, some people might find that action just a tad high, but I thought that was very comfortable. You can always take it down a little bit further. Again, I am not a professional setup guy, so I would probably suggest replacing your bridge, probably your tailpiece too, just for cosmetics, and getting it professionally reset up because these saddles really aren't in that good of shape anyways, but I lubricated them up the best I could, so that should be good. A few other things you might want to know about this one. This screw doesn't really secure to anything, so you might want to fill and re-drill. The pickguard doesn't move too much, but it does move a little bit. And I made the executive decision to be a nice guy. I'm going to leave the stripped screws out of it. Now, if you don't care and you want to put them back in, just remember, I don't think you'll be able to get those things back out. That screw was a pain to get out. So you can leave that as is, or I guess you could also just put new screws in it. But I've never really been able to find a good, reliable, inexpensive place to find those parts. So I've never had them, stockpiled. I wish I could just replace them all the time and include the originals. But as far as the pots in the back here, very clean. This is what I love to see. Nothing has ever been done in here. Nobody's ever opened this thing. Well, this one they have. You can tell by just how mangled up the backplate cover is, but nobody ever opened it with intentions of modifying it. Our visible pot code dates it to 1978. Looks like the 8th week, so very early. But of course I gave the back the same treatment. You've got a couple of nicks and dings, you got the worming, but it does look nice and polished. It's like a mirror. Everything's looking good in your toggle switch cavity location. Just a well-used guitar, I would say. But not trashed. Man, it's been so long since I've said that. Viewers of my channel that have been around for a couple of years, it used to be every single video I'd say that. Even our strap buttons appear to be original. But now moving on to the neck. If you don't like a polished up guitar, still buy this stuff because it does wonders on a neck. Like, this feels brand new all of a sudden. Like, it's still a little bit satin-like in this area, but it's nothing like when I first had it. It was a very dry feeling neck, but now this feels correct. But you can definitely see the wear on the side of the neck. It goes through to the maple neck right there. In a few areas, a few nicks and dings. None of it I really felt while playing, but it is there. If you're a picky player, don't buy this one, because there are dings on the back of the neck. But our serial number dates this one to the 103rd day of 1978. Nashville production. Another full disclosure thing, this screw never stops turning, so I would suggest a fill and re-drill, but it is completely secure as it is right now. But that's just, longevity of the future, you might want to do that. Or replace these with strap locks, have bigger screws, and then that would completely cure that as well. And for fun, why don't we do a blacklight test, super vintage Trogly style, back when I put it on a stand. Everything's looking good on that headstock. Everything's looking good up and down the fretboard here. And then we get to the body. Pretty much all even wear. You can tell those are the original knobs. No giant areas and missing finish. That's a nice blacklit guitar. But then we move it over to the back. This will really help you see the wear to the neck. So no breaks, cracks, or repairs on this one, thankfully. But you can see where that clear coat has worn off in this area where he was playing a lot. This is where you'll feel those more satin-like areas. Now they just kind of feel a different kind of glossy. They feel nice. You might just decide to, sand off the rest of the finish. Some guys do. But as far as the back, yeah, everything is looking good on this one. But all said and done, minus 3 screws, I mean, it's pretty much 10 pounds. 9 pounds, 15.6 ounces. That's about average for the Norland era. That's just what it is if you like these things. I'm not going to do a professional playing demo because this is not a full-on review, but we can plug it in like that 330. Okay, all plugged in. Let's go ahead and give it a test. Neck pickup. Let's try that middle position. Bridge position. Yeah, I don't think I did half bad on that setup. All that buzzing is all gone. Like you used to not be able to play up here. It feels like you've got a little bit of room to go down if you want to as well. Try our knobs. Beautiful. Usually you always have at least a little bit of scratchiness. Not even on the tone. How about the neck? This was definitely very well taken care of. A little bit of distortion. If you're interested in being the next owner of this particular guitar, it will now be on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. I would say that's a pretty nice winner. But that is going to do it for today's episode, Troglodytes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.